A warm welcome to a new episode of Leaders of Tomorrow Season 10. I'm Ritvika Gupta. Tonight we'll be in conversation with two successful women entrepreneurs who have carved a niche for themselves in their respective industries. In the first segment, I'll be in conversation with Priyanka Gill, an entrepreneur, angel investor, and founder and CEO of digital community platform PopXO. I'll also be chatting tonight with Sham, founder and principal designer of Isaji's Atelier. Thank you, Priyanka, for joining us today on Leaders of Tomorrow.
It's my pleasure. Very excited to be here.
So, I want to start by talking about leadership, what leadership means to you, and if you could also describe your personal leadership style. Has that changed over the years?
Leadership for me is a way of taking responsibility for everything that is going to happen, that you do, your team does. And it's about never passing the buck, right? So that sense of accountability is very, very important. And as is providing a clear sense of direction to the people that you're working with. Because in the beginning, you start by leading a small team or by a few people. And of course, over time, that grows. So your leadership style, in essence, while it remains the same, it does mature to be, because you deal with so many more people. And you get a lot more experience as you do it over time as well. So I realized that I've become a much more patient leader. And all those early micromanaging tendencies have become a little bit less. And leadership is something that I actually work very actively on as well. I study it, I read about it. I really try and imbibe it from many different spaces where I can. I'm inspired by great leaders. For example, I'm just finishing off my executive MBA with Columbia and London Business School. And leadership, of course, is a large part of that, where we actually taught leadership as a formal subject as well. So it's been very educational as well as inspirational to go through that process.
Right. Priyanka, it's not at all easy to be an entrepreneur, and I think it's even more so difficult for a woman entrepreneur. Tell me some of the challenges that you have, encountered in your journey, and how did you overcome them?
Entrepreneurship is just hard, be it man or woman, right? Raising capital is hard. Building a strong team is hard. Executing to target is hard, right? Growth is hard. Everything, right? And that's how it's supposed to be, which is why we sign up for it. Which is not to say that being a female entrepreneur is not harder. It is, because there are certain biases, both conscious and unconscious, that do come into play. And we as women have to deal with them. We face them. And we've just learned to deal with them right now. Which is why it's so much more important that as women who are entrepreneurs, we stand up, we speak up, and we are open about the fact that we have dealt with these biases, because it's only by shining light on them that we can make it easier for the next generation of female entrepreneurs who kind of walk the path.
Tell me, is there anyone you admire, a woman entrepreneur, probably in terms of professional inspiration, if you could talk about that?
So many actually, right? Because you can't be who you can't see. And that's something that I really believe in. And when I see other women who have successfully done something, it tells me that I can do it too. For example, when Nykaa went public and Falguni so happily and proudly rang the bell there, it was the same day that the Good Life Group turned unicorn. And it was such a huge moment of pride for me and inspiration for me to see Falguni right there ringing the bell. It was such a moment of pride for me to see that if Falguni can do it, we at the Good Glam Group will do it too. Right. And me as a female entrepreneur, and Naya, who's also a co-founder at the group, we both will also be there. Yeah, so Falguni is a huge inspiration. Vani Kola has been a big mentor for me throughout my professional journey. She was my first investor. She has been an entrepreneur herself as well, twice in the past. And just to see how she deals with everything, the good and the bad, it's inspirational again. So I find it everywhere that I go. My daughter, who's now turning 12, her grit, determination, never say no, can-do attitude drives me as well. So I think inspiration is where you find it. And I'm so glad to have so many flourishing and strong role models of women leadership who are there around me.
Right. Picking up from what you said, while there are a number of unicorns in India, we don't really see that many female entrepreneurs, or founders of these unicorns. You are one. What is your perspective on this, and why do you think there is a gap?
I think it's a systemic gap. It starts out when you look at the composition of school and college classes. How many women are there in STEM? How many women are there in engineering? Because if you don't have enough women there, then naturally the number of women who go up to be entrepreneurs will be by definition lesser than that.
Right.
Then you come to the colleges, all the engineering colleges where many of our companies, startups are born, they all are filled with men. So that bro culture is there, or the bros club is there, where one of them is an entrepreneur and one of them becomes an investor, and many years later they kind of fund each other, and a startup is born that's run by a man and funded by a man again.
Right.
So I think there's absence of these networks for women right now.
Right.
And which then leads up to a gap when you're looking at the different stages of funding, ABC, and then of course unicorn, and even to listing and beyond. So I think it's a systemic issue. It's a global issue. It's not just an India issue. I think all of us have a responsibility, be it as media or be it as entrepreneurs, that we just have to try and fight it every step of the way.
Right. Speaking of young women professionals, what would your advice be to them, when it comes to developing leadership skills? How do they navigate power structures? And like you mentioned, this whole boys club culture, how do they navigate that?
I think my biggest thing to all the women who work with me and all to the young female professionals out there is learn to occupy space. As women, we tend to, shrink a little bit into ourselves, and we should just learn to occupy our space. Know your subject, be vocal about the fact that you know what you're talking about, and be heard, right? Sometimes it's hard to be heard, but if you try often enough, you will be heard. So and don't give up. My biggest mantra in my life that has really helped me is I just never gave up. I've been doing this now for over 10 years, right? And a large part of the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you is because I just didn't say no.
Right. Okay, so shifting the focus now a little bit to building a brand online. You have founded PopExo. You are the co-founder of Good Glam. What would your advice, be to younger businesses who are looking to build a brand online? Is there a guideline or a checklist? If you could share that with us.
I think building a brand is very exciting. And it's almost as one of the most favorite parts of what I do today is building brand, right? And I think a brand gets built by authenticity, by having a very clear point of view, a strong sense of what the brand is and what the brand is not, right? Once you have these parameters defined, then everything else follows. Your communication strategy will follow, your look and feel will follow, design will follow, right? But having that initial clarity and then really sticking to it. Because as a brand owner, you feel that need to do everything all the time. And then that clarity gets lost. So sharp brands stick to their definition really well. So that would be my one large piece of advice to all young brand builders out there. That see what the brand is, define it really clearly, and then stick to it for some time.
Right. So, just elaborating on this a little bit, tell me, what would your advice be for younger companies, new age companies, when it comes to scaling their business in terms of seeking investment, funding? Is there a right time to seek funding?
As an entrepreneur, making sure that your company is adequately funded is literally the core part of your job description, right? As a founder, that's what you do. The marketing can be done by someone else, growth can be done by someone else, technology, like other parts of your responsibility can be done by other people. But the one thing you have to do is making sure that there's enough capital in your business. And they say always be fundraising, and I would tend to agree with that.
Right.
And the best time to fundraise is when you don't actually need the money. So I don't think entrepreneurs ever stop fundraising. I would say err on the side of raising more capital than you think you need, especially if it's available. Because as you know, funding winters do set in, and then raising any capital gets hard. So when the times are good, when the business is strong, when there is some wind behind you, just raise as much as you can, because that becomes your moat.
Right. When I spoke to Darpan a couple of months back, he spoke about content to commerce and how that was the model that you guys all lapped up, and it's been working really well. What is your take, and your overview on this content to commerce and also the creator economy, the creator industry that's shaping up in India?
So I started my journey back in the day as a digital media entrepreneur. So I started PopExo, which is a content platform for women. And I told my investor, Vani, that I'll do three things. So there is no content platform for women. We'll build that. We did that. We'll make it grow really big, right? And we did that. And the third part of my pitch was, I'll make you a lot of money as a media platform. We weren't able to do that. It's just really hard to build. It's easy to build a content platform, but it's hard to make money off it in India today, right? So did that then for 7-8 years. And then it came to a point when we realized that we have to find a better way to monetize the audience that we built. We had 60 million users by then. And then many things happened, and then COVID happened, and then Darpan and I met. And then we realized that I had 60 million female users as PopXO. Darpan had My Glam, the makeup brand, that had fantastic product distribution, all of that. His problem was CAC. My problem was, how do I monetize my user base? And when we put the two together, kind of magic really happened. And that was the beginning of the content to commerce journey, the flywheel that we built today at the Good Glam Group, which is how do you reduce your marketing costs? So at the Good Glam Group, we do that through content platforms and through our creator platforms. And that's really working.
Nice. Looking forward. Thank you so much, Priyanka. It was lovely chatting with you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Leaders of Tomorrow, and right now I'll be in conversation with Sham, founder and principal designer of Isaji's Atelier. Listen in. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us today on Leaders of Tomorrow.
My pleasure, absolutely.
So let's start from the very beginning. Tell me what motivated you to start your own interior design firm. What's the story? Tell us all.
So actually, I didn't ever set out to be an interior designer. We have a fourth generation family business that's 130 years old from my great grandfather's time, and the business is called Isaji's. It sells beautiful antiques and furniture, and it was through that I met a client that wanted to buy a bunch of lights. And when I went to her house, she told me that I would be a really good interior designer, and so she convinced me that instead of selling different products, I should actually get into the design space. And then I started out by doing her house. So I had studied for 4 years and worked for 5 years, and then decided I wanted to be an interior designer, went back to school for 2 years, studied design, and then started up.
Right. You mentioned you are a fourth generation entrepreneur. Tell me, Sarah, what sort of advice did you get from your family members? Did that help with the groundwork, with the knowledge of the industry? How did that help, in terms of setting up your own business?
I think it was really, really helpful because I've seen my dad hustling every single day. So I think one of the most positive things is that we saw so many ups and downs, and that I realized very early on that as an entrepreneur, your life and your journey is very cyclical, and it's like a roller coaster. Yeah. And there's no smooth ride to success, and it's not a linear path at all. And I think just the reality of knowing that even as a small child really, really, really helped ground me and help strengthen me, because this process has been nothing short of a wild ride.
You set up your firm in 2014,
yeah.
right? So from then till now, tell me, in terms of changes, that you have seen in the interior design space, especially the luxury space, what sort of changes have you seen over the last 8 years? Some of the opportunities and challenges which perhaps weren't there when you started out, but you are seeing them now. So if you can talk to us about that.
So in terms of opportunities, I think the average Indian homemaker has become so educated, well-traveled and aware thanks to the internet and things like Pinterest. And so it's amazing because for us as designers, we have to challenge ourselves so much more. And we can't just be okay with doing mediocre work. We have to deliver many levels above what's already available online.
Right, yeah.
So that's definitely both an opportunity and a challenge. And I also feel like the challenge in other senses may be space. everyone's spaces have become very tight and restricted, especially in cities like Bombay. But the budget price or the ticket price to be able to buy into spaces has increased a lot. So I guess that may be.
Right. Sarah, tell me a little bit about your own style, your own design. How are you creating your own space in the industry?
So I think a lot of designers typically used to always have a signature style, and many still do, and those styles are all beautiful in their own way. I like to think that we have no signature style. So with every new project, we like to delete everything from the previous project and think new and fresh. And I want every project to look like something no one has seen before, and something really crazy and really different and really customized. So I think that's what really sets us apart. I think there's a huge gap in the market that existed for someone exactly like me, who's well-traveled and studied abroad and still very much rooted and grounded in India and Indian aesthetics, with a design background. And so it's been amazing because I've really enjoyed all the opportunities that have opened up.
Picking up from what you said, tell me who are the clients that you are targeting? Who are the consumers that you're targeting?
So for us, we currently only take on super HNI projects. So anyone who has a space between 5 to 10,000 square feet or upwards of that, and who's willing to spend a large chunk on renovating that entire space. And we've targeted only that community of people across cities all across India. So we're seeing huge growth in Hyderabad and Calcutta, even more than in Bombay, where I think people traditionally associate the metro cities like a Bombay or a Bangalore with having all of that spending power. But it's actually the Chennai, Calcutta, Hyderabad, Surat that really have people that are willing to put top dollar into their homes.
Nice. As I was researching for this interview, I came across your Instagram handle, and you actually have a very strong presence. Your brand has a very strong presence. Tell me, Sarah, what sort of role does social media play when it comes to an independent business?
It's huge. For us, social media has been a game changer, and it has helped us open many doors that previously were definitely not available to us. But at the same time, for something like interior design, word of mouth is really, really important. So maybe 100 new clients will discover me thanks to my social media. But that at the end of the day, when you're spending that much money on your space, you still do need that word of mouth connection. So to anyone that has a small business, please do build your Instagram, but don't focus all your energies only on Instagram, because Instagram has become a currency almost these days. And so if you have a strong Instagram, people equate that with having a good business. But your business is your business, and your Instagram is just a means for you to be able to fuel that business, and we have to be careful to separate the two.
Right. During the pandemic, you also started an online community, right, for
Yes,
designers?
yes.
Tell me, what was the motivation behind it, and how has that shaped up?
That I think is the thing that I'm most proud of. So I think as designers, all of us work independently, and we don't have a collaborative way to work with each other. So say I'm working on a project, I'm stuck somewhere. Who do I ask? I can only ask the people that are in my office. So I realized that I was reaching out to a lot of designers in an offline setting. We had formed WhatsApp groups, and we were all really helping each other. And I wanted to extend that to my larger Instagram community. So we've set up, I would say, more than 100 or 150 groups across cities across the world, where designers are all communicating with each other and helping each other for everything. Contractors, vendors, clients are giving me a hard time. Everything is discussed. People are forming partnerships, and it's in every single city in India, or most of the cities in India. And designers are really connecting on it, and I'm so happy and proud that this is something that I've been able to have a very small role in. It's been super powerful, and I'm a big believer in the power of helping and collaborating versus competing and being negative to one another.
Nice. As we wrap up this conversation, tell me, what advice would you have for young entrepreneurs, like yourself, especially maybe even women entrepreneurs, who want to start their own business, if you could advise in terms of the kind of investments they should be looking at, or the kind of team, they should be looking at hiring, what would you like to say?
I think the first thing is that I actually had like 12 different jobs before I found interior design. So my first and biggest and only advice to someone who's starting something new is just keep trying and just don't give up. I know it sounds like a bit cliche, but having failed at so many things before and finally found this one thing that I'm so passionate about, one day, whoever is watching this, you'll find that thing that clicks and you'll know, and then you'll put all of yourself into it. And definitely building out a really strong team is the only way you can grow. So do that as soon as possible.
Nice. Well, it was great chatting with you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Leaders of Tomorrow. We hope you enjoyed the conversations. Thank you and goodbye.